Hey y'all, Coaching the Fight here, guys. Stacy with me,
Shalom.
and we're continuing our series from Genesis chapter 9 and 4, and that's how to eat meat, being careful not to eat the lifeblood therein. And today we're going to be talking about the fish.
Yeah, we've had a lot of questions about how to properly cook fish. Are we allowed to eat fish? Do we have to boil it? Do we bake it? Do we roast it? How is it that we properly eat fish without eating the blood?
Well, and that's why it's important for us to do this small portion of this series because the fish is actually different.
How so?
Well, we're going to see here in this class that it's okay to roast fish or fry fish or even dry fish.
Okay.
Well, first we'll look over here in Matthew chapter 14, verses 18 through 21, where this is the story where the Messiah used fish to feed 5,000 people.
Correct.
You remember that story?
I do.
How did it go?
They were out in the countryside, and there were so many people there, and there was one lad who had, if I'm not mistaken, had some fish, and he Messiah had them to prepare the fish and feed it to the people.
Well, actually, there was no preparation involved. This little kid had 2 loaves of bread. He had 2 loaves, so it was already cooked, and he had 2 fish.
Right.
Apparently, they were already prepared too, because you see in verse 18 that the Messiah said to bring it here, and then he started distributing it.
Right.
He started breaking it and passing it around. There was no preparation.
Right.
So the thing about it, when you think about this, and we're going to get into some scripture, we don't like to lean on our own understanding or anything, but when you're thinking about this logically, what kind of fish did this kid have walking around with him?
I would think it would probably maybe dry fish.
It almost had to have been dried fish. How would it be walking around with 2 fried fish or 2 boiled fish or 2 broiled fish? How could it be anything other than dried? He probably had it in a satchel or his pocket or something.
Yeah, you take fried, and you know how we fry fish. It was probably a little greasy.
Yeah, so eat it.
And then with boiled fish, that
been a little
is
slimy,
soft.
yeah.
A little soft. And roasted fish, I've never had roasted fish before, but
It's gonna be greasy too.
I would think it would be greasy from the oils in the fish, and a little bit soft as well.
So my point is that he's not really walking around with no anything other than dried fish in his pocket. And here the Messiah has taken these 2 fish and distributed amongst the people.
Yeah.
But we can come back and talk about this. Let's go over right now, and we're going to look in 1 Corinthians chapter 15. And in this verse, what we'll see is that Paul, this is Paul speaking in 1 Corinthians, how he's letting us know that there's different types of flesh. If you would, read verse 39.
All flesh is not the same flesh, but there is one kind of flesh of men, another flesh of beasts, another of fishes, and another of birds.
Yeah, so there's different kinds of flesh, and when anybody who cooks a lot of different meats, would attest to this.
Yeah.
That it cooks differently.
Right.
Right. Nobody's probably ever cooked any human flesh, at least on purpose. I've cooked my own a few times by accident, but it doesn't really do the same as the fish of a chicken, or the fish or the flesh of a chicken, the flesh of fish, or the flesh of a beef or lamb or anything. It's different.
Yeah.
Well, that's what Paul, I believe, is making this distinction here, is that there's different kinds of flesh for each one of these creatures.
Right.
That's why, when you pluck a chicken, it just looks different.
Yeah.
Scale of fish, it just looks different.
Yeah.
So we're saying here that it actually is different. Well, when we come over and we look in Leviticus, and let's see. And chapter 7, we see that Moses is also making a distinction between the different types of animals.
Okay.
But here in Leviticus, he's actually talking about eating with the blood.
Eating with the blood, okay.
Yeah, and how we are forbidden to eat with the blood.
Right.
And that's like we said, that's the purpose of this series that we're doing, because many of us are guilty of this, passed down from our parents and our grandparents on, improper, food preparation. And many of us, including myself, are just now learning that, the way we've been eating meat, it has been getting us in trouble. Mm-hmm. And if we don't make a 180-degree turn on that,
right.
we may not even see the kingdom of heaven in this flesh. We may, have to be reincarnated, or like the Messiah said, born again in order to see the kingdom. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, anyway, I don't want to go through puberty again. I don't know about you.
No, it wasn't very nice with me.
So I'd like to inherit the earth in this flesh. But anyway, let's come over. Let's look at Leviticus chapter 7. If you would, start at verse 26.
Moreover, you shall eat no manner of blood, whether it be of fowl or of beast, in any of your dwellings.
Now, notice here that he didn't mention fish.
I noticed that.
He didn't mention humans either.
Right.
Well, again, nobody's really cooking humans on purpose.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But he talks about the birds, and he talks about the beasts.
Right.
And he left out the fish.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I think that's important. We're going to see, first of all, we've seen that the Messiah is doing something with these fish over here that, looks a little bit odd. Mm-hmm. Maybe they weren't boiled like we would have to do fowl, and we would have to do beast in order to remove the blood out of it. You have to boil it. Mm-hmm. Well, let's go back over and let's look back in the Gospels and see if there is some indication that the Messiah didn't boil his fish.
Okay.
All right. So first of all, let's come over to Luke in chapter 24. And we see here, what do we see in verse 41? Read verse 41.
And while they yet believed not for joy and wondered, he said unto them, have you here any meat?
Okay. Without scrolling up, do you remember what this is talking about?
I can't recall.
This is going to be the time when the Messiah has been resurrected.
Okay,
and he's coming before the disciples.
Right.
And, he's got Doubting Thomas there and the rest of the disciples, and he's has worked to prove to them that he has been resurrected.
Yeah.
And now he's actually asking them for food.
Right.
So he says, do you have any meat? Do you have any food? Mm-hmm. All right, read verse 42.
And they gave him a piece of broiled fish and honeycomb.
So they gave him a broiled fish. What does broiled mean?
Broiled is sort of like a deep bake or something like that.
Yeah, to me, that's when you put it in the oven on really high temperature or something like that.
Yeah, like you would, me thinking of my childhood, how we broiled cheese toast. You ever had cheese toast before?
Where it be bubbling on the top. Yeah. I guess it's, and the thing about it, when you turn the broil button on the oven, and just the top part gets hot for some reason.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So, all right. So here it is that he brought them some broiled fish.
Right.
So now think about this for a second. If they had brought some broiled beef, would the Messiah have ate it based on everything we've learned?
No, not at all.
He wouldn't have eaten it. No, even if they'd have brought him some broiled chicken, he probably wouldn't have ate that either. Mm-mm. But you look right there in verse 43.
And he took it and did eat before them.
So he ate the broiled fish in front of them, right? So we've seen that there is a distinction between the fish and the flesh.
Right.
And we've seen that Moses made it clear that we should avoid the blood of the beast and the blood of the fowl, but he didn't bother to mention fish. Mm-hmm. And here the Messiah is about to eat some broiled fish. Mm-hmm. Right? Let's go to one more verse. And that's going to be over here in John chapter 29.
Well, I do have a question about it, but I think
Go ahead.
After I finish reading this verse, then I think I'll ask it then.
All right. Well, we're going to come over and we're going to look in John chapter 21 and verse 9. This actually comes before that part in Luke in chapter 24. It's a different part of the story. But if you read verse 9.
As soon then they were come to land, they saw a fire of coals there, and fish laid thereon, and bread.
Yeah, so here you got these disciples. You read about them in verse 8. You have the disciples who are making it ashore, and there is some coals and some fish they're cooking.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And but look at verse 10, who it is that's doing the cooking.
Jesus said unto them, bring up the fish which ye have now caught.
Right? So here's the Messiah. He's about to do what?
Looked like he's about to cook it.
He's about to cook it, but he's about to roast it in this fire.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Right? Which, like we've learned, we've been doing several classes on, out of this Genesis 9 series, but everything that we've learned so far says that cooking over fire is a no-no.
Right.
Everything has to be boiled.
Right.
Well, that's the purpose of this class. Then fish is different.
Yeah, that was my question. How is fish different? But let's continue with this.
Well, no, we can get into that because the thing about the fish is, especially clean fish that has both scales and fins. They have what's called a what is it called? I can't think of the thing now. They call it a bloodline or something like that runs down the middle of the fish. It's kind of like one area where all of the blood is in the fish, and that's why when you look at the meaty part of the fish, it's always white.
Yeah, it always has a pinkish color, and I've cleaned enough fish to know about that. I guess that.
What fish you cleaned that was pink?
The regular like the fish you get out of the pond. That's a sort of. It's
No,
not.
it's
It's
white.
not white. It's like translucent.
It's not pink because it doesn't have any myoglobin in it.
Okay, all right.
It's
maybe
the
white.
blood or the myoglobin that would make it a pink or a red. And if you ever open up a fish and it was pink,
it is.
it's kind of gray or kind of
grayish, translucent color.
Yeah. If you did open it and it was pink, then now either you have found an unclean fish or an unhealthy fish.
Right.
Something wrong with that fish.
Yeah.
Or
but it is gray.
you're going to have to boil that fish.
Yeah, you're right. You're right.
Yeah, so just about every clean fish, well, I should say every clean fish, the flesh of that fish is white. It's because there's no myoglobin in the fleshy part, in the meaty part.
Yeah, and like I was saying about, like you said, that flesh is a grayish, whitish, translucent color, but there is that little string that runs down the back.
Yeah.
I think I remember. It's been a while since I've cleaned fish.
Yeah, you have to kind of take your thumbnail and scratch that out.
Yeah.
You have to,
take a knife
or something, but it doesn't come out real easily. But you're right, it's right down the middle of the fish's back, right close to his vertebrae. They call that the bloodline or something like that.
Okay.
And like I said, the clean fish have that. That's where all of his blood is.
Okay.
And once you clean that out, once you get rid of that would be the lifeblood of the fish. Once you clean that out, then you can do whatever you want with that fish. You can boil it, but you can also dry it. You can fry it. You can broil it.
You gotta take the head off though.
Well, why?
The head has some blood in it.
Okay, well,
yeah,
okay.
Take the head off.
Yeah, I guess you have some in his brain or whatever. Okay,
yeah.
But the thing is, you can cook it any way you want it to. You don't have the same restrictions as you would with other type of flesh, where you would almost always have to boil it.
I've never paid any attention to why a fish doesn't have blood in it, but you're absolutely right.
Yeah, because he got that bloodline going down his back. You guys can look over and you can see pictures of that bloodline, or anybody who cleans a fish. Like I said, a lot of times they'll take a spoon or take a fork or something and they'll scratch that, because you have to kind of break it. It's kind of like a really thick blood vessel that you have to break it. And then a lot of times you'll scratch it. Men like me, they will take and scratch it out with our thumbnail or whatever, just to get all the red part out. But then that's it. There's no more. There's nothing else we do to actually, get the blood out. It's all gone.
So he would have taken this bloodline out and then roasted it over like an open fire or something.
Yeah. So people who, and I'm sure sometimes we may desire to have fried food, greasy, fried food. Well, fish is it. That's where we can get our fried food fetish filled from the fried fish. All right. All right, well, guys, we just wanted to share that with you. We didn't want to take up too much of your time, but we did want to make the distinction that the fish is different, and we can cook it different. There was one lady that was talking about fish broth and how she was going to make, did she say a smoothie out of it? What was she going to make out of the fish broth?
I don't remember exactly. I know she didn't say a smoothie.
It was something that I ain't never really thought about doing it before, but
yeah, maybe some soup or something.
Yeah.
But I know a lot of people were wondering about fish, so there's your answer.
Yeah, fish is different. All right, y'all. That's all we got.
Shalom.
Shalom.